everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Spilling the Tea on GovCon. I'm Teresa Moon, Director of Business Development for Parabolis. We provide a better financial partnership for government contractors that includes a line of credit to fund your growth. The purpose of this podcast is to assist small businesses with success in the federal marketplace by introducing them to industry experts and resources that they may not otherwise know about or how to connect with. Our guest today is one of the most noteworthy on the program to date. Mr. Jaime Gracia is the Director for Strategic Enterprise Programs at the Department of State in the Center for Acquisition Experience, Bureau of Administration, Office of the Procurement Executive. I was lucky enough to connect with him at an event with the Government Contracting Club that we hosted at the Tower Club. He is yet another VIP that I was fortunate enough to meet through my great friend, Guy Timberlake. So I'm grateful that you're here, and welcome, Jaime.
Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. If you would please let our audience know a little bit about you and your prior experience before taking on this role with the Department of State.
Sure, thanks. A lot of people ask me kind of what are you doing? Because most federal executives spend 20, 30 years in government, retire, and then go into the private sector. I actually did that in reverse. So I owned my own small business, a veteran-owned small business for about 15 years, civil government consulting. And we did acquisition and project management support to federal agencies. We did some IT support around innovation, emerging technologies. And also part of our portfolio was business to government, where we would help other small businesses create footprints and write proposals and help them market to the federal government. So we were very successful. We did well with that. My wife and I also had some other business interests in the government sector that she still has. But I just got to the point where I just honestly got very frustrated with some of the decisions that were done, specifically in procurement, how they were being done. And I was like, boy, I would love to be a federal executive so I can get my hands on the ship and like steer it in the right direction and do things well. And here we are with the Department of State. That's certainly where I'm perfectly placed. Prior to that, I did have some experience with Department of Homeland Security, running a contracting office there, and also at the Internal Revenue Service, where I was working issues with emerging technology, specifically with artificial intelligence and RPA, and trying to modernize the procurement operations. And I'm doing that here at State. So my title, Strategic Enterprise Programs, what does that entail? And I often ask or answer, well, what does it not entail? Because it's a huge portfolio, just like it says, right? Category management, value engineering. Specifically for me, kind of most relevant today is as industry liaison for the department, and also the acquisition innovation advocate, which is an interesting, because I think I'm the only person in government that has both titles, because they're normally separate. But my background is pretty perfect for these roles, because I have a bit of a better sense of kind of what industry needs and what they want, to having spent a majority of my career in industry. So I'm in the process right now of unrolling just tons of programs and information that we're really going to start launching next year to improve engagement with the federal sector and with small businesses in particular. But really, it's focused around the acquisition experience framework that our senior procurement executive, Mike Darius, had put in place, and also in conjunction with their excellent OSDBU office with Mr. George Price and Anna Ehrman, who I believe was a guest on this show as well. Working with them, they are excellent. I think they're one of the best OSDBUs out there. But what's great about State Department is, for me, it's a lot of white space, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So I'm really honored to be in this position. It's a lot of fun, never a dull moment, certainly. But there's a lot of work that we do, and we really look forward to engaging with industry to help us build these programs that they need, so we can be more effective together, really help a lot of proactive industry engagement, but really help both the government and also businesses, particularly small businesses, be successful together. That's really the outcome of our programs.
That's amazing. And, this program was put together for that specific purpose of bridging the gap with what small businesses do best, and connecting them with the right avenues so that they can provide that to the government. And I think you guys specifically do such a great job of humanizing that approach. For so many years, it was such a mechanical relationship between industry and government. And I think that's very intimidating to some business owners because they just didn't know what they didn't know. And there wasn't a lot of access to the information to bridge that gap. And you guys are doing a great job with you at the helm because of your experience. And I think that's going to be a great advocacy for small businesses to be able to lend their expertise to the initiatives that you're putting forth. And that's why I'm so glad that you're here today to talk about that. I mean, and it's funny that you even represented it as a ship. I have it, you being at the helm of the Department of State and creating a free-flowing experience between industry and government. I want you to speak a little bit more specifically about some of the initiatives concerning engagement that you and your team are rolling out.
Sure. So I think kind of a crown jewel of that is to digitize our procurement forecast. Right now, it's a good forecast done by our OSDBU office, but as part of the acquisition framework, we really want to take that to the next level. One of the important benchmarks that we're using for that is the Professional Services Council benchmarking scores on engagement specifically for forecasting by agencies. And the State Department does well, but I really want to be on another league with the entire federal government. Because what we're doing is we're not just digitizing an Excel spreadsheet. We're providing opportunities for effective knowledge transfer for opportunities. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a prototype that we hope to roll out hopefully by the end of the year, if not early next year, so that we can get some engagement on it and say, hey, what do we think about that? What we were really trying to do is around focused on engagement. What information is needed? What information is lacking? What would you like to see? We want to, because we have a lot of information that's in our procurement systems, that's in other systems that we have, that is just siloed and not being used. So what we're doing is creating effectively what I like to call a data factory. So all these data sources can be put together, and then putting a layer of AI and machine learning on it, we can now say, okay, this is a real opportunity through this procurement request and this information here and this updates, and really now provide exceptional information that's missing, so that there is a point of contact information. There's, is this opportunity funded? What's the status of this opportunity, right? It's really to transfer knowledge and improve the customer experience, both for industry, because oftentimes, emails and phone calls go unanswered, and that's not on purpose, of course. It's just that the acquisition workforce is just overwhelmed. Right. Even myself in my industry liaison program, I'm overwhelmed. So it's not that we're not responsive. It's just difficult, right? And we want to be as responsive as possible. But these are the types of programs we're putting together where these types of tools can automate things and send automatic updates for those opportunities of interest to let you know, hey, look, it's been 30 days. There is no change, which is not helpful. Right. But if there are changes, like specifically with an acquisition strategy, like, hey, we went from Alliant to Oasis or another vehicle, right? That's important information. We want to automate that, right? Say, hey, there's been a change in your acquisition strategy. Here's the change. And hopefully we want to get to the point where we say why that change happened, right? Maybe it was market research, maybe it was something else, right? Because that's also important information, because we want to build tools so that businesses can create pipelines with our department, right? We want to be able to create these tools so that industry can effectively use the information that we have to proactively go after opportunities, and again, build that strong engagement so that we can do better outreach, right? Have more industry days, do reverse industry days, do more one-on-ones, right? That's what we want to do to have mature opportunities. So those are all programs that we're also putting in place in addition to the forecasting tool, so that we can have a lot more direct engagement, right? We want to put events out there. I'm planning to have listening sessions. I had hoped to do that this summer, but we got overwhelmed with the fourth quarter needs. So that's going to have to wait until the fall. But nonetheless, it's just listening sessions so that I can hear input from industry, what problems are you having, right? What issues are you struggling with, right? How can we be more effective? We're going to be relaunching Doing Business With Us on state.gov so that it's a real knowledge center about doing business with the department and providing the tools and resources that are needed to be successful at the department. So that's another thing that we're doing. So, I mean, there's quite a few. I can go on and on. But nonetheless, there's a lot of renewed energy about providing a direct engagement to the department so that we can get people in front of the programs and the business owners, the people with the requirements, and that also have the budget and the funding to fund those requirements, right? That's what we want to do, is make those relationships so that we can be more productive. Certainly industry can have a pathway to lower barriers to entry for not only Department of State, but federal government business, and then also produce, of course, better procurement outcomes, write better requirements, and really provide better strategic relationships with our supplier base and diversify our supplier base, which is very important as well. So we can, again, have better outcomes and improve the mission, because both sides obviously want that. So there's a ton of stuff on the way. So stay tuned as we roll out these programs over the next couple of years.
I love that. And I think a lot of it has to be instigated to a certain extent by your past experience. I mean, you have a strong background in technology and cybersecurity. And so you recognize from your own experience that it is important to incorporate tech into innovating the way that we do things. I think there's been a lot of status quo in the government forever. I think for a while, that was probably what was attractive to people to get involved, because things don't change as quickly. And so they know kind of what to expect. But with regard to what we all know to be true with understaffing and people being overwhelmed in certain roles, it is amazing that you guys are automating things the way that you are. So businesses have access to it at real time without having to worry about, is someone getting back to me to answer my questions? Is there anything more that you can elaborate on the tech initiatives as it relates to artificial intelligence and machine learning, which I think all agencies, and especially in the military, are focusing a lot on AI right now? Is that a focus for you all going forward as well?
Yeah, 100%. A very big part of our modernization efforts and our procurement operations will focus on cognitive procurement and emerging technologies, which is also in my portfolio for strategic enterprise programs. I mean, what's really great about where we are right now is, in regards to emerging technologies, Department of State is immature in that, we just don't use a lot of these tools. And that's not necessarily a bad thing per se. It gives us the opportunity to roll out these tools correctly, right? I think the market, there's how it's kind of unfolded across the federal government is agencies are looking for kind of quick wins, especially with RPA, because procurement is such a process-driven enterprise, where we can install RPAs and really move the needle with opportunities now for modernization, like contract closeout bots, contractor responsibility bots, right? Those types of kind of mature processes for emerging technology and procurement. And that's great. And I definitely want to take a look at that. But before we look at that, I really want to do a deep dive into an assessment on the state and health of the organization vis-a-vis emerging technology. Because where I see agencies fail is, they put all this stuff in place, but without a real strategic plan for what really is the impact to the workforce and what we're doing in regards to return on investment, feasibility, and a strategic framework. And we're doing it, in my opinion, correctly, because we're putting all of the runways in place with strategic frameworks that we're doing. We're doing a reorganization of our entire procurement so that we are aligned more around spend categories and more around focusing our customer base and those types of opportunities and spend. For example, like in IT, software, hardware, cyber, right? We're really focusing around that so we can have targeted capabilities to help our customers achieve those specific missions. Now, that being said, how can we help with emerging technology? Well, we've got a ton of data now through our strategic partners that we're using for these studies, such as Forrester and McKinsey, that are really helping us look at our entire organization 360 and really getting into the weeds about where things are and where we should go. And that's really part of that assessment, because we've got a lot of raw data about what the workforce is asking for, where the pain points are. And that's what I'll be focusing on, is how can we now affect change and get quick wins and low-hanging fruit, but doing it smart, right? And another important aspect that we have to keep in mind is, you mentioned security, right? A lot of these tools will probably need to be ATO'd, right? We have to make sure that we secure our networks and we secure our supply chains. So we're going to have to get that process early in and figure out how we can do that. And I do see that problem really hurting scalability and creating a valley of death, that I'm sure you've heard that term around that, because these problems aren't thought out very well at the beginning, right? Because it's like, hey, let's put in RPA, let's do all this stuff. And then at the end of the day, the cyber office comes in and says, whoa, you created shadow IT here, I got to shut you down, right? And that's not what we want to do. We want to do it smart. We want to ensure that we have the best impact and create the best ROI. And that's how this assessment will be done, so that we can start implementing and figuring out who the best partners are to do it, and really create a strategic program in the next 2 to 3 years and really modernize ourselves correctly. Because one issue that State Department has is that, based on our transaction volume, we've got an issue with our workforce, right? It's a lot smaller than it should be for a comparative amount of transactional volume at another agency for the same amount of spend. So we have to take that into account, because what I don't want to do is, add on to the work that they do. We really want to try to automate some of these things, right? So that's what I'm really talking about, is the impact to the workforce, so we can really go from low to high value work and try to create a better customer experience, both for our customers and also for our 1102 contracting officer workforce. Because if I can automate a lot of these things and take the load off of them, of having to respond to emails and having to respond to phone calls, like, where's the status of my stuff, right? We are automating that right now. So we are creating really neat dashboards using our current tools and our current writing systems with our partners we have internally, so that we can create those automations and now point our customers to these tools so that they can see the status of it. The way that I explain it, and my visioning statement for this, was kind of like the Domino's pizza tracker, right? So order received, orders being prepared, orders out for delivery, orders delivered, right? That's what I want to have here. And that's what we're building. So we can say, it's with your contracting officer, it's out with legal, right? It's out for a small business review, right? So exactly where it is in the process. Now we can put metrics around it, so that we can now have real good service level agreements with our customers, so that we can, keep promises and metrics that we're going to do our best to get this out on the street and get it awarded within X amount of days, right? And hold ourselves to that and work backwards and reverse engineer that process. And those are the types of metrics that we want to put in, so we can have better planning. And now hopefully that type of information, right, that's kind of what we want to put into the prototype for industry, so that they can know, hey, this is going to hit the street in 6 months, right? That's pretty important to know. So these are all the types of things that we're thinking about, and that I'm thinking about in regards to really modernizing our procurement operations, our customer experience, how we look at procurement, and how we find ways to really modernize these operations, so we can make it most effective, and really use these as a force multiplier, as I mentioned, to really help our workforce be more effective. Because because we're so small, we still get the job done. And I don't know how they do it. I mean, it just goes to the professionalization of this workforce, their dedication, and just their real desire to complete the mission. I mean, it's an incredible workforce, and I'm really honored to be here. And I want to work hard to help them and to really help complete our mission in the best way possible.
Well, I think you're headed all in the right direction, and things are already being put in place, which is the most amazing part. There's a lot, that you can talk about, but when you're actually putting it into practice the way that you guys are, says a lot for the fact that not only are people believing in the initiatives that you guys are putting out, but that it's to help on both sides. So that it lightens the load for the workforce, so that it's more attractive. So then you can attract more people that are good at what they do to come in and work with you all. I love
Exactly.
that.
Right. Yeah, and that's an interesting point because, right, there is, like you mentioned, there's a human capital factor here because we do want to make the Department of State, and we do have some initiatives on human capital to really, look at Department of State differently because part of our reorganization, part of our modernization, it's going to provide tons of opportunity for not only employment but also for moving up the ladder, for career opportunities, for expanding your skill sets, and really go into an organization. And the Department of State has one of the best missions, in my opinion, in government, to really attract the top talent for our 1102 workforce. And it's a really exciting time to be here at the Department of State, and we want to continue to attract that talent, not only from other agencies with 1102, so we can hopefully poach a little bit and get and not be shy about it. Right, we want the best of the best, but also for industry. Right, we're really trying to innovate with how we modernize. We want to try to diversify our supplier base, and we're really looking at industry as well as part of that process, so that we can get the best of the best and really complete the mission in the best way possible.
And I love that. And I think that's a great segue, both from the hiring side, the staffing side, and with regard to the businesses that are interacting with the contract opportunities that are available with the Department of State, is that you have a strong initiative with a DEIA, and diversity and equity, inclusion, accessibility is all, they're buzzwords of the day, of course, but when you put it into practice is where the rubber meets the road, right? And so I think you guys do that on both sides. So I know you've got some strong initiatives in that respect. If you wouldn't mind talking a minute about that as well.
Sure. So diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, right? DEIA, it's really baked into what we're trying to do. And over the past year, the department has really focused on it, obviously, like executing executive orders on this. But we've really taken it a step further, in my opinion, and how we're looking at it from a procurement standpoint, because we've done quite a bit of data analytics around it. And there's a lot of opportunities for improvement in doing business with small businesses. So some things that we're doing, that we have done actually to help modernize some of our operations, is ensure that contracts that should be going to small businesses go to small businesses, right? Making sure that we're cognizant of FAR 19 to ensure that small businesses are getting their fair share. We're following rule of two, and we put automations in place in our contract writing system so that when things that should be going to small businesses are not going to small businesses, or not planned to go to small businesses, are being flagged. So we can review. I mean, not to bottleneck, right? We can't afford to do that, but nonetheless, they're getting flagged, so we can be more proactive as management and leadership to understand why, right? I mean, mission comes first, obviously. But if there are opportunities now that we should be doing it, right, we want to make sure that, of course, not punitive, but we really want to make sure that we follow FAR policy, and also provide opportunities now for competition and ensure small business gets these contracts that they should, right? So it's just those kind of quick wins that we're doing it. We do use the Unison marketplace for more of our smaller buys, and we're encouraging our staff to ensure that they take advantage of these platforms, right? Anything that is micro purchase to simplified acquisition, right? The 10,000 to 250, right? That's a great target for commodities, right? To go ahead and use that. And that's a great opportunity now for new entrants, right? To diversify our supplier base and to lower barriers for entry, because you don't have to do a lot of the things that you normally have to do for kind of services, right? You have to register in SAM, right? We can't get away from that. But nonetheless, right, it's just a kind of, I mean, I hate saying this, but it's a bit of a paperwork drill, right? Get yourself ready to do business with the federal government and the Department of State, right? And have at it, right? So we want to try to find opportunities where we can increase the aperture for small businesses. And these are just some quick wins that we're doing now. But certainly I mentioned the procurement forecast tool. I think that'll be an important way to also help DIA initiatives and lower barriers to entry, because we're providing data, we're being more transparent, we're finding opportunities now for more direct engagement and to listen to industry, and more importantly, to provide access. That's really one of the missing pieces of kind of DIA And we really not only are we cognizant of that, but we're proactively finding ways to improve that. That's the important thing, right? I can talk all day about we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but when the rubber hits the road, it's about execution,
Right.
and that's my laser focus to make sure that we do these things. So that's certainly some of the things. Anna Ehrman, who is phenomenal in Osdabu, right? Mm-hmm. She has lots of matchmaking events. She does a lot of engagement, right? And that's also an important part of our DEIA initiatives to continue that, right? Continue that engagement and find opportunities to not only help small businesses win Department of State work, but also educate the workforce, the industry partnerships that we want on, here's how you do business with the Department of State, right? That's very important because Department of State is a bit of a different animal, right? We have a global footprint and we have a huge footprint in construction through our Office of Business Operations, and overseas construction in particular is a very, very difficult, complex problem, right? And there's not a lot of companies that can do that work. So, we acknowledge that we do have some issues there trying to diversify our supplier base there. But nonetheless, right, we want to find ways to open the aperture, hopefully for subcontracting and get some innovation in these things, right? And another thing that's kind of important as a bit of a side note with DEIA is also sustainability goals. When we're looking to lower our carbon emission and carbon footprint, and we're looking for ways to go to really net zero greenhouse gas emission. So we're looking for opportunities for infrastructure improvements. We're looking for opportunities for different suppliers that are eco-friendly. So this now offers new opportunities for commercial entrants who may not have government business that have a wealth of expertise to do that. So that's yet another way. And just as a bit of an aside for operations from a procurement standpoint, right? I want us as procurement operations to also focus more on corporate experience versus just rote past performance, right? And that's an important distinction when it comes to procurement innovation, certainly from a technique, right? Kind of DHS Pill 101, right?
Right.
About how we look at our vendors and how we choose our vendors, because that's great for non-traditionals, certainly when it comes to IT innovation, but it's not just IT, right? I want us to take a look at a whole body of corporate experience and not just through CPARs, because CPARs can be challenging, certainly for small businesses, because you may not have a lot of experience, or, hey, I can't get a CPAR, I can't get government experience or CPARs rating because I can't prime things. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? And that's why Anna and myself, of course, we look for opportunities now for subcontracting, because that's how you get started, basically. And that's how you can build your profile. That's how you can start getting CPARs. And that's now how you kind of start building your footprint and start building your business as a government contractor. So, and we're looking for opportunities now for subcontracting, right? Not only through engagement, but hopefully finding ways to automate that. We're looking at what, we're definitely pushing Evolve in that direction, right? Really focused on opportunities for subcontracting and for small businesses. We've had several industry days. Yesterday's industry day was focused specifically on these small business issues. So, right, it's this direct engagement and the knowledge transfer that's important for industry to understand how we operate, how we're going to operate, and how we want to operate. And that's really important for us to hear that feedback and understand how we can improve, but more importantly, how can we modernize our operations so that we can be most responsive, again, lower barriers to entry, and really find opportunities now to improve our DIA posture with our contracts and our industrial base. And that's really another part of my portfolio that I'm focused on.
Right. I love all of it. I think you're really opening the doors to allow people to feel more comfortable with engaging on opportunities with you because of that. I think a lot of agencies are intimidating because they don't want to be bothered with people who don't know how to do business with them already. And to your point, Anna does a fantastic job. She too has that passion for helping small businesses in her background as well. And so you really lend yourselves to that education piece that a lot of agencies still aren't doing because they just feel like they can't be bothered by it. And I think that attitude has to change because they're missing out on opportunities to deal with really innovative companies that just don't know what they don't know. And just a
That's
little
right.
bit of barrier breaking down there can allow for, just the knowledge of getting involved with simplified acquisitions. I know that Guy is going to freak out in excitement that we're talking about this today because this is his
Yeah,
baby. He
yeah,
loves that.
yeah. Mr. Simplified Acquisitions, right?
Yeah. And there's nothing simple about huge. And so I think it's a great way for people to engage without trying to bite off more that they can chew in the beginning,
Yeah,
because it is
100%.
baby steps are the best way.
That's right.
And
Yeah, I mean,
I
you
love
have
it.
to walk before you run, absolutely. And
Yeah.
those programs that Guy puts together, I think, are excellent resources for small businesses.
Oh yeah, now he's really gonna love it.
Oh
We're
yeah,
endorsing that too. I always do. So I find a way to work him into
yeah,
every
yeah.
conversation
Just
because
an
I find it
opinion,
bodes
not
well
an
for me.
endorsement.
Yeah, I always say I moonlight as the president of his fan club, so
Yeah,
I'm not afraid.
yeah. Well, I've known
He's
Guy
the
for a long
best.
time, and like he knows where I stand.
Yeah, of course, of course. Well, how can we engage with you further in the coming months and into FY? Do you have some engagements post September that we can see you at?
Yes and no. So we're in the planning phase right now.
Right.
Certainly in the fall, we want to launch a lot of programs like Q1, right?
Hmm.
We're really looking at Q1 as an exciting time to launch a lot of our programs. I mentioned the refresh of state.gov. That's
Hmm.
planned for Q1. We hope to have both a big industry day for our Office of Business Operations, for construction and the construction industry, and like all the moving parts that go to that, right? We're hoping that for Q1. I'm trying to set up a what I'm calling a demo day for our Center for Analysis, so we can look at the mostly a market intelligence kind of tool, or you can either look at it kind of like a Shark Tank, for capabilities for big data and data analytics and cyber. So we're looking at that also in Q1.
That's awesome.
Plus, the listening sessions that I want to do. I hope I can do that this summer, because that might help shape some of the programs that I want to do. If nothing else, just like, a coffee with the industry liaison, right? Just
Yeah.
half an hour, and whoever wants to come, just to provide some access, right? If nothing
Yep.
else, to ask questions, hopefully not to yell at me or troll. Hopefully that won't be the case. But right, I do want to have that. And I want to do that. So I'll try to put those on the calendar. I mean, the most important thing is, please follow our industry liaison LinkedIn page, right? That's going to
Yeah.
be our central hub. And then as we now start into Q1, into FY23, we're going to really start maturing the industry liaison program for a lot more engagement opportunities and a lot more material and knowledge transfer as we start to mature that program. So there'll be a lot more opportunities. Industry liaison at state.gov. That's our inbox. Please use it. I mean, I'm not shy about advertising that inbox, right? That is the entry point for industry, for the department, right? That's where things can start. The only thing I ask is help me help you, which is, try to give me as much information as I can to help you, right? Hey, what's the status of this RFI is not so much helpful. If you can, right? If you can give me like the RFI number, who you've been talking to, right? What type of bureau you're interested in working at, right? A little bit more information goes a long way to help me, right? So I do ask that of our industry partners. Help me help you the best that you can. And we'll definitely do the best that we can to be responsive as best we can. But more importantly, to try to get you in front of the right people, because the most important part of that initial meeting is the second meeting. And that's where we want to be.
Absolutely. And so we've got running underneath here the Department of State Industry Liaison LinkedIn page. Great place to follow. LinkedIn is a great place to get information about upcoming events for the Department of State. Anna does a lot of educational initiatives, and so she's another great person to follow. And you guys put out a lot of great information as far as directing people to the right spots. And so I think you're doing a great job as far as information access. I can't say enough about that. And I know that you're a busy man, and I so appreciate you being here today. And I look forward to seeing your agency's success, and wish you the very best in the end of 22 and into fiscal year 23. And we'll definitely be keeping in touch and staying on top of how things go. And I hope that you'll come back and join us again.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate it, Teresa. Thanks for the opportunity. And
awesome.
We'll definitely keep that conversation moving forward.
Excellent. Thank you again. And thank you all for staying tuned. We're excited to continue sharing the amazing industry experts and resources that will be on our show in the coming months, and hope you will join us again for Spilling the Tea on GovCon. Again, I'm Teresa Moon with Parabolis, and I hope you all have a great day.